All right, Coach, talk about the bye week this week.
Yeah, I mean, it comes at a good time for us after having fall camp, you know, and having 4 games. Us and Hawaii, the only 2 Mountain West teams that played back-to-back power conference schools. You know, so for us, it comes at a pretty good time. We would have a couple people that would miss this week due to little things that should be all right going forward. And so, you know, anytime that you have that, you get a chance to heal a little bit. Gives us a chance to do that, number one. Number two, gives us a chance to go back and look at like where we were at versus really good competition for a couple weeks in a row with our players, with what we're doing, with schematic, with all those types of things there. So that's something that we can certainly work through this week, and it helps us there, and just work and grow. And so that's a big piece of it there. And so before going further though, I am going to address one other thing, is the fact that, you know, I go through kind of a TV copy after games, day after, or something like that. Normally have the volume down, music on, because I don't want to hear really what people say or anything else that way. But someone kind of alerted me and they said, hey, why don't you go through the 4th quarter of this game here? And I'm watching this, and the assertion that like we were trying to play to keep the game close or something that way is one of the stupidest assertions that I've heard in a long time. I think one comment that was in there was, once we got the ball to like the 12-yard line, we should be throwing the ball in the end zone every single play. Okay, well on 3rd and 8, we ran a zone play because of the blitz check, and we get 10 yards and got it down to whatever the 8-yard line or whatever it was at the time. And actually, I can tell you right here is that we went from the 20-yard line, 13 yards to the 7, okay, and did that. Well, that's a really well-blocked play by Wyoming. Well, okay, if we gained 1 yard, it would have been like, what are they doing running the ball in this situation? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, right? When we started that series, the goal was we needed to get a touchdown. We needed to score. As long as, to me, it was outside of 4.5 minutes to go in the game and we didn't have to burn timeouts, we were still in a good spot. With 4 minutes and 32 seconds to go in the game, we scored a touchdown. We were then to kick off. We had 3 timeouts. We had the 2-minute timeout. Onside kicks versus hands teams have a conversion rate of less than 10%. Surprise onside kicks have a better conversion rate. It's not a surprise situation when you're down 10 with 4 minutes to go. So we kicked the ball off. It was time to go play defense and get a stop. Okay? The Cleveland Browns did that yesterday with the Packers, who turned the ball over, and the next thing you know, right? That's what you got to do. You got to go out. You got to get a stop. Your hope is that you can get a takeaway. Your second hope is that you get a stop and get the ball back. So on the first play, the plan was going into that series. The first play, I was not going to call timeout. That would have taken it to 3 minutes, even off the first play that they ran. At 3 minutes and 46 seconds, they would have snapped the ball. After that, which would have hopefully been a second down stop, we would have called timeout. Okay? And then hopefully after a third down stop, we would have called timeout again, keeping somewhere around 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go in the game with a timeout and the 2-minute timeout for us to work offensively where everything is in play, a field goal or a touchdown, because we could get it back to a 1-score game. Okay? Problem was we didn't get a stop. So when they gained 10 yards on the first play and now get a first down, you can choose to use your timeouts on the 0 down, right, which is really, okay, then they still have possession. So, okay, I reset and said we're going to start this process over at 3:46. We've got to get a stop. So they had their first play, gained 2 yards. Okay, great. That was when we were not going to call timeout. We were going to call timeout on the second down stop. Problem was, they gained 12 yards and got another first down. So hindsight to that, I would have called timeout after that one anyway. It was probably a play too late of what I was going to do, but that was the direction to it. And so to sit there and say, okay, well, we were playing to, that's a bunch of crap based on I don't know what. We had a plan going into the drive, a plan going into the series, and certainly it wasn't to let them score. Certainly it was to get the ball back, and we weren't going to go ahead and take a 10% play or a less than 10% play of an onside kick, of which we were going to need 2 in that situation. So sit there and go, why don't you onside kick? Well, if all these plays worked, we would onside kick every time, okay? And they don't always work. So you'd be in a situation where we wanted to kick the ball deep, we wanted to play defense. Figuring off the time metric, I assumed that we could have the ball back with somewhere between 3 minutes and 20 and 3 minutes and 30 seconds left with a timeout and the 2 minute. Didn't happen. So we didn't, so it's just like anything. When the plan blows up, doesn't work. Cody drives back to Cheyenne on I-80. Well, if they close I-80, his only option is Happy Jack. When they close Happy Jack, then what? You know what I mean? So that's really where we're at. And so, we didn't, so that's where we're at with that situation. Because I know somebody's going to ask it to me, and I heard all that, saw all that, and I'm going to address it right away. It wasn't like you sat there and had no clue, or we're just like, we're good, let's just get our food and get on the bus, or anything like that. This is some of the stupidest things I ever heard of. We needed to get a stop, we didn't get a stop. And that was the assertion to it. So right now, we've got to go and get better. We have a lot of things that we can do to get better. There's certain metrics that I like where we're at in the program. There's some things that I don't. We've given up 3 first quarter points this year in 4 games. I really like that. We've scored 7 first quarter points in 4 games. I don't like that. I think we're playing at a very high level on special teams right now. All the way across. We're punting the ball well. We cover it pretty well. We're kicking it off. I think we can do a better job with our kickoffs with heights and things of that nature. Eric Sandvik is 4 or 5 on field goals. The one that he missed was a 48-yarder out here that he kicked the turf. And he got under the ball too much, and that's why it went nowhere. And so, right now I think that there's some good things in that area. I think that Caden Anderson had his best game the other night. And you look at it and say, well, the guy was 11 we had 6 drops in there. That was part of it. The other part was the run checks and the things that he got us into and the second half groove that he got into. That looked the way that we were hoping that looks and the way we expect that to look each and every time. I think that we have, I thought up front offensively, we had some good moments in there the other night, and to do that. And I think what's been magnified is the fact that we've played 2 secondaries that are pretty good back to back. And so there's a lack of space in there on certain things. And it shows up. When you see Smith Stone from Utah play corner, he's really good. When you see DJ McKinney play corner from Colorado and they say he's going to be a first-round pick, there's probably a good reason why, because he's pretty good. And so, I think that there's a lot that we've been able to learn and grow out of that. I'm appreciative of the fact that we played 2 back-to-back power conference schools, and because I think it's going to help us identify where we need to go from a coaching standpoint and also from a playing standpoint. But make no mistake about it, like I look at it, there's always mistakes that you reflect back on in the course of a game. Had we got the 2-point play against Utah at the end of that game and made it 24-8, we were going to onside kick. We didn't get the 2-point play. We're down 18 points. We kicked off. Okay, that's just part of it in some of those game situations. So we'll just stop there and answer any questions.
Let's talk about that drive.
Yeah.
Hindsight now, I think what is on people's minds is the huddling and how slow and methodical it was. Do you wish you could have redone that a little bit?
I mean, look, I think that maybe there's a little bit more urgency that we could get out of the huddle. We did sub-personnel groups some. We went from 12 to 11 and back to 12. And there was some things that were in there that were some checks. At that point in the game, they were playing a little more zone. They were doing a couple things, but they were also still a mix. So some of it, okay, they get bare front. Now we need to get to this. We get to, so there was a couple things in there that you wanted to make sure you were in the right play. And so at times when Caden got up to the line of scrimmage, there was still a couple checks to be involved and to do it that way. I don't know that it would have been in our best interest to just go into like wing it 2-minute mode with the defensive ends they had and having a new left tackle in there and the whole thing that way and go into that type of space to it. Yeah, I mean, look, do I wish that we scored in 3 plays and there was 8 minutes to go in a game? Yeah, I do. And I hope every time we get the ball, we score in 3 plays. But, we didn't, the goal was this, is that when we got the ball, the first thing was like, we need to get a touchdown here. We need to get a touchdown. If we would have had to use timeouts in order to get that touchdown or to get down the field, something that way, then it changes the dynamic of what you do at the end of the game. Having the ball, look, nobody wants to be down 10 with 4.5 minutes to go, but when you're down 10 with 4.5 minutes to go, you hope you just got a little surge of momentum. You hope that you can carry that out on the field. You hope that maybe the opponent gets into a little bit of a conservative mode too. They threw the ball twice in that drive, give them credit. And what happened was we didn't get a stop. We had 3 timeouts to use, and we were ready to use them after for the first play. But when the first play became a 10-yard play, okay, then I reset the meter. I could have used and called a timeout then. I reset the meter. They got 2 yards. Okay, I'm going to call timeout after this next play. They gained 12 yards and got another first down. Okay, so now your meter got completely thrown off. And the whole plan of what we were hoping for in that drive was completely decimated. So it would have been an onside kick at that situation, because then you would have been potentially given the ball up 10 yards from field goal range, 12 yards from field goal range, where now you got to get 2 touchdowns to get back. You know what I mean? So you can always second guess a lot of things. If we had no timeouts, we would probably onside kick. If we would have had 1 timeout, in 2 minutes and 20 seconds to go, we'd onside kick. Having 4.5 minutes and 3 timeouts, kick the ball off. The drive itself, yeah, do I think that maybe we could have, been a little bit quicker? Yes. But I also think that it wasn't going to be a 3-play shot to the end zone based on some of what they were doing too.
Jay, speaking of the offensive line, is there any update on Geiger and any other injuries that are kind of on the radar going into this bye week?
Geiger right now, I'll kind of, probably next week give you a full update on that one. I assume that he will be out a period of time, and we'll kind of, work from there. But it's the same as he had. I forget which one. I think it might. I don't know if this is right or his left. It's the one that he had before. I could pull my email out. I can tell you right now exactly what it is. But it's the same as he had before.
How about Marky Graham? Noticed that he had a big club on his right hand. How's he recovery process on that hand?
I mean, the hope would be when we get out of the open date that we get him out of that, and that type of thing. And look, I think, we need to get an improved level of play from certain guys in our secondary, and he would be one. And so hopefully we get that, peeled off of him, and we can do that. I thought we had some guys in the secondary that played well. I thought Tyrese Boss for 2 straight weeks has played pretty well. I think Desmond Hearns had some good moments. Here's another thing to it too, right? We struggled the other day with Caden Salter's elusiveness. Okay, the first drive that they scored a touchdown on, late first, early second quarter. They have a 2nd and 10 right around midfield, and we blitz, unblocked off the edge, and we go with the low shoulder of the quarterback. He escapes, right? And he gets out of bounds for a 4-yard gain, right? Most people that you play, you have a chance to get that on the ground. So instead of turning 3rd and 17 into 3rd and 6, like what they did, then what we ended up with was the fact that they were able to throw a mesh route, got a first down, keep the drive going. The play right before the 4th down that they went for, that Marquis got called for the pass interference. we've got hands on the quarterback for a 10-yard loss. It's going to make it 4th and 17. We couldn't get him on the ground. He got the ball thrown away, got thrown out of bounds. Next thing you know, it's 4th and 7, and they go for it. So, I mean, look, there's a lot of things in that game where it's like, okay, you need to make this play in this situation. We needed to get him on the ground. We needed to change the dynamic of it. We didn't get those things fully accomplished. You know, and I think that's the thing that, like, as we go back into this week, you know, where we have to identify things that we got to get better. Part of it is that, you know, I think he was one of the more elusive quarterbacks that we'll probably see through the course of the year too. And we struggled to get him on the ground. We really did.
What kind of conversations are you having with Jay Johnson about the state of the offense and what it needs to look like once conference play comes around?
There's a lot of conversation that goes on with you know, both sides of the ball, but particular with offense. I think it's you know, obviously where we feel we're best at in the run game, where we feel we're best at certain things. You know, where we were in August, early August, you know, you felt like you had a 3 tight end package too with Sabota, Gillenborg, and Jake Wilson. You know, Sabota's playing, getting better. Jake Wilson will be out an extended period of time, and Gillenborg's played 9 quarters. You know, and so there's, you know, some things there that we have to adjust with. I think the next part to it is that we now have I think it's pretty clear to see that I think we have a good group of running backs that we can use, and that's a big feature to what we do offensively. And then it's, look, I thought Caden the other day was, I mean, even some of the balls are incomplete. Look, I mean, we dropped, you know, it's a challenge ball in the end zone with Jalen Bean. There's a drop by Justin Erb on a mesh route that we could get a, you know, catch on there. We had 6 drops, you know, and so we had a drop by the back in the flat on our play. You know, the ball was in some good places. So when you look at all this and say, okay, where do we go and what do we do? A lot of it's, okay, what are we proficient at? What were we proficient at against these people? Where can we raise our level with some other players? We got some other players that need to emerge more than what they have right now, and that's a big piece to it too. I mean, we're 4 games in. Jalen Sargent has, I think, 3 catches right now. I expect more out of him, and I think he'll play better, and he'll continue to do that. So those are all things that I think that are big pieces to it. We have an idea of where we want to get to, and we have an idea of what we did right and what we did wrong. Trust me.
Jay, a couple for you. Speaking of offense, if my math's right, 8 total yards on 13 plays in the first half on first down. I assume first down is a point of emphasis, and then like you just talked about, virtually no production from Sargent, Brantley, Nanke, Fitzgerald, Bean. I mean, the list goes on. I assume the come to Jesus moment is on the right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there's a part to it that you look at and say, okay, you know, like Jalen Sargent was going to get a big play against Utah. We got sacked right when the ball's about to get delivered. You start looking at certain things at certain times, and you know, you have, is this a player issue? Is it a schematic issue? Is it something that we're not, you know, getting guys in certain spots in certain places? You know, I thought the other day, you know, I mean, it got spread around a little bit once it got past, you know, Chris, really in that regard from a reception standpoint. Jalen Bean had a good play there. Richardson caught a touchdown, some things of that nature. We've got some guys that can step up and need to step up. And that's what this week we're going to have to figure out, kind of like, okay, who's going to be in that mode? I agree with you in that sense. Is like, I expect more out of a couple of them than what we've gotten so far. But I also have to temper that with the fact that, you know, like, I mean, say what I want. The 2 weeks ago, the secondary played not bad. Neither was this past week, you know, in that regard. We could be better. I certainly have to be a lot better. But, you know, and so there's an expectation there. But, you know, some things got magnified against some of those teams, for sure.
Do you think the first down thing, though, is really just kind of putting you guys in a tough
Oh,
spot?
it's putting us in a tough spot, for sure, because I think, especially when you talk about that in the first half, that was the difference in the first half and the second half. You know, the second half, we were, we were much more efficient on all the downs and got in a rhythm. First half, we couldn't get in a rhythm on certain things. We missed a cut on one of the run plays, tried to bounce it, 3-yard loss. So there's some things in there that just we were spinning our wheels on some stuff the other day, and we got to clean some stuff up for sure. It needs to look a lot more like the second half did, and the rhythm that we got into there, I thought from a play call rhythm, I thought from a quarterback rhythm, that was the best that we were all season in a rhythm offensively, given quality of opponent. And I'm not saying that they're going to win the Big 12 or anything like that, but I will say this: they have some secondary guys, and they got a couple guys up front. They have a lot of money to spend. They spend it on somebody, and there's a couple of those guys that are pretty good that they spend it on. So, I think that we had some good positives, but we have a lot to build on.
Looking at these first 4 games as a whole, obviously coming out of this non-con 2-2, what are some takeaways, and then do you feel like a good foundation has kind of been set for you guys going into conference play?
Look, I think if we could build on what we did in the second half of that game the other night offensively, then I think that we have a potential offensively that we haven't reached. We haven't been close to reaching that. Now, part of it, I think, Sam Harris helps us unlock some of that. We can block a play for 3 yards, and he's got enough burst and vision. The key to him is vision. That's the difference between him and some of the other backs that have been here in previous years, is the vision. He gets to great spots. So, I think that he unlocks some things for us. I think that, the progression that Rex Johnson has made, Jack Walsh played his best game at center the other day. Okay, so great. We got to build on a lot of these things and put ourselves in a better spot. I think that's the thing, that the takeaway through the first 4 games for me is that I think there's still a lot of meat on the bone offensively in this program. And we've got to get that solved. We got to get that taken care of. I did like the rhythm that we got into play call wise in the second half the other night. I did like that. And outside of the fact that in the fourth quarter, maybe I'd like to have been 1 less minute to score that touchdown. I didn't care as long as we didn't take the entire quarter to score the touchdown. Like I said, there was a marker for me in my mind. If we got the ball in the end zone, 4.5 to 5 minutes to go in the game with our timeouts, let's go play defense. Let's go try to get this thing done. The problem was we didn't get a stop. And, and the whole thing there. But I did like where we got to in the second half with that offensively. I think that we've got a lot to build on there. Defensively, I think you say through four games, I think we got some real potential. But we also have to learn, like from the other night, we had some guys that got a little deer in headlight look. Big atmosphere on the road. Really, to be honest, we probably needed to play that group here and go to the other, and probably give us our best chance. But we went there, and we had some guys that kind of the moment hit them at times. Didn't play as fast, didn't play as well, didn't play as good as what we needed to. And so we got to get better with it.
Entering the season, you talked about wanting to see guys make progress. And it's a young team. You said that there would be a lot of growth over the first month or so. I'm curious what maybe backups are showing you that they're deserving of more playing time.
Kyle Frent, I think you saw out there the other day. I think you're going to see more and more of him as we go forward. I think, obviously you've already seen Sam Harris then, who was 4 weeks ago a backup that now gets to where he's gotten to. I think right now at defensive end, I think Chisholm Ifiani had a really good night the other night, played his butt off. I think Braden Wilson has done good things. Bogart got an ankle injury the other night in the whole deal, but he's had his moments of doing some things there too. I think we've been good with Evan Eller and Braden Johnson and Enoch At linebacker, I expect more out of Stulsatz than what, I expect him to run the show better than what he's done on a consistent enough basis in that regard. I think with Justin Taylor, there's been good moments and good things that way, but I think we got to push him even more this next, period of time. I think at corner, look at it. We're not far away from where we start using Tyson Dean. He's getting closer and closer to being kind of game ready on stuff and some things of that nature. And so, there's a lot of moving parts to that. There's a lot of names that I just gave you that a lot of those guys hadn't been around very long, and so that's a good thing. And I think where we come out of, like I said, I'm appreciative. I'm not going to sit here and complain at all about playing 2 Big 12s back to back. Yeah, I wish we won one of them. I wish we won both of them. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to win both. We wanted to win both those games. I think we had good effort. I think our execution failed us at times in certain things. And I think that we need to look at it as coaches, like, what are we best at against the best of people? Okay? We can say what we want. Utah will probably have a better offensive line than probably anybody else will play the rest of the way. Okay, so what were we good at against that group? Okay, and that's a big piece of it. And so, those are things that we foundationally have to look at, examine this week going forward.
Pretty stressful spring ball for you. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on. I think they officially passed the one transfer portal window.
All for it. All for it. No, the one that I think of the 4 power conferences, the ACC was for it, the SEC was for it, the Big 12 was for it, the Big 10 wanted one window in the spring, and I thought that was the stupidest thing I ever heard of. So I appreciate the fact that we eliminate the spring portal window. We can deal with our team here and now, and then we get a chance to go and whatever movement may or may not happen. Once you get really started in January and first day of class, this is your team going forward, along with freshmen that you may still bring in or anything that way. The spring portal was just so disruptive. Okay, we pour an off season into a guy, pour a spring practice into a guy, and then he can just up and bolt. That made no sense, look, the NFL people are going to have to look at it, because there's going to be some of these stupid rules that come to them someday, because all the people that are going to be there in 5 years are guys who are living this life right now. So unlimited pay, unlimited movement, and everything else, they're going to want that in that league. And so that's part of it, I guess.
So during the off week, we, I think, can speak for everybody, we kind of watch football and actually get to see some other teams play. I'm curious what you do with your off week, and you're very open and communicate a lot with guys. Do you sit there and watch games and shoot a text to Jay Johnson and say, hey, watch this play, we need to steal this, or watch this, we need to steal that?
Yeah, look, we do that kind of off video that we watch and everything from that standpoint. As far as watching games on TV and doing that, like Friday night I'm going to be in Phoenix watching a high school game. Saturday I'll be flying back on a plane. You guys will have to be sending me texts about plays or something like that, because I think my flight lands at 2:30 in Denver or something like that. So Southwest doesn't really have a lot of TVs on their thing or anything like that. So we do the best we can with a lot of that. There's ideas that we've seen, that maybe we go through the course of this time right now. There's ideas that we've seen from opponents. There's certain things that we've seen from people that we play that we kind of like, and those types of things. The blitz check that Sam Harris, got a 13-yard run on at the end of the game that if it didn't work, everybody said, why are we running the ball? That was something that I can't even remember where it's seen this team do that. It was like, okay, versus this look, this is what we need to do. And so we worked that, and it worked, and it's part of it. But, so we're always kind of trying to learn and do that. And what we got to do right now is we got to learn ourselves even more and more. That's what like I said, these last 2 games have been really good for that. We've had good moments. We've also had bad moments. We lost both games. There's a lot of bad moments. I have to look at it from a coaching standpoint and say, okay, if we're ever in a situation like we were again the other night, do I use the timeout structure differently? But also look at it defensively and go, you know what, we got to call things differently and we got to run things differently because we have to get the ball back. We can't allow this first down, so we got to be a lot more oriented toward how do we get this ball back as fast as possible. So those are just a lot of things that go into it.
You're still being a young defensive coordinator. What do you think these past two games facing Big 12 offenses have done for Aaron Bull?
I think Aaron's done really good. I think he has. I think what happened with us against Utah, there was a couple of, communication breakdown. I mean, look, we're going to go to the fourth quarter in that game 10-0, and we don't make a stop in a situation that we should. And then the other night, I mean, like, we give up a post in the middle, in the cover 3, right? It shouldn't happen. We have a middle run-through player on a deep ball to a 2-back personnel and get beat on it. That's a really good call. Like, I've made that call a ton of times, and I've seen that call made a ton of times. And I know the defensive coordinator of the Arizona Cardinals really well. And when we talk with him in May and stuff, we get that type of person, we make that call a ton of times, right? They make a play, and so I think he's done a really good job of kind of managing what we do well and putting guys in position to make plays. And that's really the biggest thing that you can ask for in it. Because, look, at the end of the day, here's what came down to the other night. We had a couple situations that we didn't get the quarterback on the ground, okay? I thought early in the game we got bailed out on 3 pass interference penalties. But I thought of all of the things in that game, I thought there was a lot of hands on Jalen Bean, didn't get called. And I thought there was a lot of hands on Chris Durr later on, didn't get called. And I thought based on what did or did not get called, that Marquis Grants was kind of touchy 50-50 in that situation, right? You play through it. You move on through all that and you go. But guys are in position to make plays, right? Jalen Bean has made that catch, even with people hanging on him. We needed to make that catch. Eric Richardson had one later on where there's a guy hanging on him. He's got to make that catch. He's made that catch before. So, that's what this comes back to. We had a guy on the middle run through that their touchdown to start the third quarter. We're there. We weren't in the best spot that we could have been, but we're there. We got to make the play. Their guy made the play. Like, that's what that. So if we're not in a spot where we're cutting guys loose or having missed assignments all over the place and do that, and guys have a chance to play and play fast, that's the first things that you're always looking for when you evaluate things defensively. It's like, are we challenging these plays?
Good? Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep. All right. So now we can